So, this was the finale. It doesn't feel like a finale. I don't know. This just does not feel like a finale to me. Hey, what is going on, everybody? How are you all doing today? I hope you all are having a wonderful and fantastic day today, and if not, hopefully you all will have a better tomorrow. So, RWBY Volume 7, Chapter 13, the finale, is publicly out, so it's time to review it, take a look at it, let's go over it. So, in the previous chapter, as we already know, because was I frustrated about it, Neo was getting ready to fight Team Orange, and of course she got punched in the face, which she shouldn't have because they nerfed her terribly. So the fight actually starts. And, thing I'll say about this is they do perform some Neo actions, but I have some issues with this fight. Now, while there are some things I like in this fight, there are some things I disagree with and don't like in this fight. So let me explain what I mean. So when it comes to Neo, of course, they have her perform her defensive moves, like with her umbrella, for example, and some of her skills of being able to use people's own bodies against them, as we'd seen in the Yang fight in Volume 2, as well as the RWBY fight in Volume 3. Now, thing of it is, though, is that one problem I have with this fight, and many of you may have seen this, is that the fight is very sluggish. It's a cat and mouse kind of fight, but it seems kind of sluggish. Now, of course, you have some fan servicey moments of Neo. I will say I like those, because Neo is best girl, and, argue against me if you want. Try to change my mind, but Neo is best girl no matter what you say. Thing is, when it comes to Neo, it would have been a lot faster paced, because Neo is a very high energy kind of fighter. And I feel like with the way that they did this, while they were showing that Neo is still a powerful character, despite the fact that they nerfed her in the previous chapter, and oh boy, was that, oh man, the frustration of that. But the thing of it is that with this, while we're seeing Neo easily handle Team Orange here, this fight doesn't have the high energy that Neo naturally delivers, so it still feels like Neo has been nerfed. Not a fan of that. Do not like that. But, that's the thing. You have Neo, who in the previous volume, Volume 6, she was taking on someone that was as powerful as Cinder. Now, mind you, Cinder was not using her maiden powers, but still, she was on par with Cinder. And that shows you that Neo is a very powerful character. She's not one to be taken lightly. And, seeing that they just kind of dubbed her down for this was kind of weird. Also, I want to bring up something. In this fight, now, in the past, we have seen slow motion animation in some of the fights. Neo fights definitely have had slow motion animation. But I want to talk about this one because the way the slow motion was used was, well, it didn't make sense. So you have Neo taking her umbrella, and she's going to go and swat the stupid farm boy, right? So while you have Neo attacking in the slow motion scene, getting prepared to deal the final blow upon the stupid farm boy, then self-insert idiot Jean shows up out of nowhere. Now you're probably wondering, well, where's the problem with this? Jean was on the other side of the hallway behind Neo, and he was pretty far off. So how does he, within 10 seconds, 11 seconds, how does he show up right next to Oscar to be able to use his gravity field shield to push Neo back? The scene doesn't make any sense because they're in the middle of the hallway, so he would have had to run around the hallway to catch up and to hit Neo here. This, to me, doesn't add up, and there would be no way that Jean could do it within, 10 seconds. I don't see how he was able to perform this action. Also, it just felt really dumb seeing him just kind of show up there and just defend Oscar. It just felt the way that it was even done was just stupid anyways. It didn't make any logical sense. But with this fight, what continues on afterward is you have Team Juniper, who is trying to distract Neo, and you have Oscar grab her by her legs. Why? What? Oscar is right in front of you as well as Team Juniper. How did she not see this? I mean, she's mute, not blind. I mean, seriously. It's like the writers just tried to dub her down, and it's just stupid. I mean, we've seen tons of terrible character nerfs, and this is just another one of them. And what is this scene with Oscar grabbing Neo's legs? Like, what? Just, really? Neo would have seen this coming. She would have dodged. I mean, yeah, it was an illusion that got shattered, but, oh, it was so dumb. But One thing that I have to at least give credit to is how Neo-Semblance was actually used in the situation. Now, some of you had asked me how Ren would react if he lost Nora. I don't think personally he'd be able to live without her, but that's personal opinion. But that's because they grew up together, they had to fend for each other, and this scene kind of proved my point here because, of course, you have Neo, who used her semblance in a very smart way to distract Ren from attacking her, which was pretty cool because she has that look like Nora, and also she took the relic off screen. I just want to throw that out there as well. But when Ren is attacking Neo, big thing is that she just puts on this face like, oh, I'm Nora, don't attack me, how could you? You know, and of course this then terrifies him. And I'll at least say that was a good use of her semblance, but at the same time, it's just the movement of her character, it just feels like it's nerfed. If you go back to Volume 2 and Volume 3, she's very mobile. She moves around, she's very agile, and they just kind of present her as she doesn't have to move very much or perform very many movements at all just to show how powerful she is. And it just feels like a big dub down. It just feels like the energy and the flow of the combat is just kind of down. And the fight was, in some ways, very disappointing. I mean, some things I liked, as I said, then there were just some things that was just disappointing to me in this fight. But then, of course, you know, you have to have Team Orange run away because you have stormtroopers after them. And yeah, I'm calling them stormtroopers because they're pretty useless soldiers, to be honest. So then, of course, moving on to the Cinder versus Winter and Penny fight. I have problems with this fight. I have many problems, in fact, with this fight. And so let's get into that issue. So as we know previously within the last chapter, Cinder has come to take the powers of the Winter Maiden. You have Winter and Penny who are here to protect the Winter Maiden from Cinder taking her powers. And so the big thing about this fight is one, I have issues with Cinder's character here. Two, I have issues with Winter here. And three, I have issues with Penny here. So let's talk about that first. Cinder is basically just screaming all the time. Her calm demeanor just has been thrown away. She's very out of character in this fight, which is offsetting to me. Because Cinder has been known to be one to really be calm when she's up against her opponents. I mean, it's typically how she's been. And, you know, weird thing is she brings up a statement that I feel like Adam or Ilya would bring up, and that is that Atlas is a country that makes others starve for power. That they're hungry for it and they want that power as well. That sounds like a statement Adam or Ilya would bring up. Now, the reason why I have a problem with the statement with Cinder is because when it comes to Cinder's character, we don't have the knowledge of her backstory to be able to say this is something that Cinder would say. I mean, yeah, we have some knowledge of some things when it comes to why she might say that, and I'm going to get to that. But thing is, this just feels very strange for her character to really bring up, especially considering that she said herself that she's from Mistral. Now, how this affects Mistral, yeah, that's questionable, because if you were to go back to Volume 3, when she has her speech, she talks about Mistral, and how she comes from Mistral, and how there are problems there that Mistral's going through. But, of course, we don't really know what those big issues are. We don't know if it's a power struggle. We don't really know that. And we don't know if it has to do with Atlas. This is something that they never really brought up. Volume 6 had a prime opportunity, by the way, to go into Cinder's backstory, which I've brought up multiple times, because if you want characters to have depth, you want people to understand your characters, then you add to that character. You don't just go, okay, the character's back, here you go, and we're not going to add anything. Because you don't add anything, there's nothing to understand about the character. It just leaves more questions of why does this character have this ideology? Why is this character bringing up these said things? It just leaves it up to interpretation, which that's headcanon, which then you're just like, well, that doesn't really tell me anything, because the series itself is not going into the detail or the depth that it should be with its characters for you to understand their motivations or why they're even saying some of the things that they're even saying in the first place. Because without that, we don't understand them. But I'll get more into Cinder in just a bit. Let's talk about Winter really fast, because this fight, of course, you know, you have Cinder who has pushed Winter and also Penny outside. They're fighting out above the city, and with Winter. Now, here's where I have my problems with Winter. Winter just constantly summons in this fight. We don't see any glyphs coming from her. So what really defines her from Weiss's character, considering that she's the older sister of Weiss? Her semblance is exactly the same as Weiss. So what defines her as a character? Because we don't see her use any glyphs to jump around or speed up, use time dilation in this fight. And how does that make Winter better than Weiss? How does that make her seem like a superior character in terms of knowledge and combat when she is doing nothing more than the same thing that Weiss is doing as well? It's very disappointing. I mean, even Weiss uses dust with her semblance. We don't even see that out of Winter. We just see her constantly summon. Of course, Cinder shoots a fireball, which, if you look at the animation to it, it didn't look the best. And of course, Winter just loses her Grim right away. The fireball hits her after the Grim has been just cut down, and Winter has lost her aura. And then you have Cinder, who is flying around. Now, interesting fact, she's flying off of her feet now instead of her hands, which she used to use her hands. So I guess that's a way of them saying that, oh yeah, she's learned something new. And that's interesting. But she also threw a dagger at Penny that blew up, and so that distraction allowed her to go off to the Winter Maiden while Penny goes to save Winter while she's falling. Now, the one problem I have with Cinder here, again, want to bring this up. Instead of just stabbing the Winter Maiden and seizing her powers, instead, she monologues right in front of her. Straight up monologues. Instead of taking the time that she could while she's monologuing to steal the powers. And she talks about how, the Winter Maiden, you've been waiting for me the entire time. Yeah, just shut up and steal the powers. I mean, Cinder, you know better. Come on, steal the powers. That's all you have to do. And whenever she takes her grim hand after her monologue to take the powers, then the old woman stops the hand, which I'm surprised that she's old enough to be able to stop Cinder's grim arm from penetrating her flesh and stealing the powers, but hey, whatever, right? And she tells her that she's going to show her the full power of a seasoned maiden, which is just one of the strangest things to me ever, and here's why. Okay, so we see the Winter Maiden create this big, huge storm of just cold debris, of just ice swarming around her, and Cinder then starts to freeze. What I don't understand here is that, for one, why doesn't Cinder just use fire, because we've seen her do it, and she just engulfs herself in that and then just gets through it? Clearly she can do that. This is a nerf to Cinder's character here. And we've also seen Cinder use ice magic before when she froze Raven back in Volume 5. So why in the world is Cinder just letting this happen when clearly she could just do the same thing with fire? We also saw her even breathe fire later on. So she's a Charizard, essentially, and she could just burn down this stuff. I don't understand why they do this. And as the fight continues on, Cinder, losing her cool because she hasn't gotten the powers yet, starts throwing blades. I mean, her fighting style, which we've seen be actually pretty good in the past, she's just all over the place. It's like she doesn't know how to fight. She just flails around, which is another problem. And so while she's fighting Winter, the Winter Maiden dies, and of all characters to get it, it's Penny. For one, I thought young females were supposed to be able to obtain the maiden powers. An android is an android. I don't understand how Penny was able to get these powers. Also, now that we know that androids can apparently get the maiden powers, then why didn't they have androids instead of actual human beings take the powers? The androids would never age, therefore they could just keep the powers and be good to go. The only consistency with the maiden powers at this point are the flaming eyes. Penny has green eyes, green flames. Cinder has orange eyes, orange flames. Raven has red eyes, red flames. The Winter Maiden has blue eyes, blue flames. That's like the only consistency that I thought was kind of cool, actually, that they did here. But this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in terms of how the maiden powers can go to an android. I don't get it. And so, while Cinder is getting furious because Penny has now obtained the maiden powers, the next thing here is Cinder is afraid because then she sees something that triggers PTSD. Wow, now that I think about it, Cinder's PTSD is better handled than Yang's. Oh my dear God. Cinder, you have more depth than Yang now. Wow. But yeah, we see the well-known headlight eye demon mascot, RWBY, jump in. And then, of course, she turns on her high beams here. And when she does, which they tried to reenact the Volume 3 moment, the flash of light, Cinder escapes, of course, but this scares Cinder, which is still weird considering that Cinder wasn't afraid of RWBY back in Volume 5 when she saw her. But hey, whatever, right? But that's the thing. I also want to bring this up. How was Penny not affected by this flash? Salem back in Volume 4, Chapter 1 stated that the reason why Cinder lost to RWBY back in Volume 3 was because of her acquired maiden powers. They are affected by the Silver Eyes. So why was Penny not affected by the Silver Eyes? Talk about another inconsistency in retcon right here. But, throughout this entire arc, the reason why I have a problem with Penny also obtaining the powers is because, of course, this is their whole idea of trying to say, oh, well, what does it take to be human? What does it mean to be human? But they could have had Penny interact with Freya so that she could make sense on becoming the Winter Maiden. They don't even do that. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But Penny becoming the Winter Maiden just doesn't make any sense to me at all. I mean, Winter would have made more sense. I mean, Neo would have even made more sense. I mean, Cinder becoming a double maiden, which I think that the writers are just afraid to come up with that. Also, I think they're just biased against Cinder's character becoming, more powerful than she is. I think they just don't like her, but, I'm just saying. But that causes them to let Penny just gain the powers. So Oscar then goes to talk to Ironwood. So this speech is about how Oscar is trying to tell Ironwood that it's okay to be afraid of things like this. It's okay to be afraid of Salem. And Ironwood, he's talking about how he never should have trusted Team RWBY all along, that he just knew that trusting them was a bad idea. And he has one of the best lines I think I've ever seen in this series. Like, he has one of the best one-liners, where he goes, James, that's what my friends call me. He's like, but to you, it's General. And then he just quick draws, and he just shoots Oscar. I was like, this is the best scene in this entire volume. I was like, Ironwood, you are fantastic. You are a champion, sir. I mean, he is the Chad. You cannot argue that he is not the Chad. He is the Chad. He is fantastic. This is a champion right here. This is an alpha. He is an alpha male. I mean, he is a true champion. But what doesn't make sense to me is how Oscar, his aura did break, and how he doesn't have a fatal wound due to this. But as he's falling down the shaft, then you have, you have freaking Ozpin come back. I'm just going to say it right now. For one, when they're falling through the shaft, does that remind anybody of Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, when Luke falls down the shaft in Cloud City? Does that remind anybody of that? Because it reminded me of that. Secondly, the whole speech that he has about philosophy and everything, I didn't care anything for it. The only thing that was really going through my mind whenever I heard Ozpin come back was, oh great, Shannon McCormick actually reared his ugly little head after how he performed a very illegal action last year, didn't go to jail for it, and was not fired over it. Yeah, screw off, Shannon McCormick. But then, of course, you have Cinder upset about the whole thing. Like I said, she was breathing fire, and then when she turns around, she actually sees something that makes her happy, which this is one of the best scenes, at least for the moment. And that is, of course, the best girl has come back successful. And, that's the thing. We need to see more villains win. We really do. Neo being successful here is good. And the thing is, Cinder needed to be successful too, I think, because they just make Cinder come off as a joke, and for at least Neo to succeed and Tyrion to succeed, this is good, but they continue to make the villains seem like nothing more than a joke, and I find this to be a problem. But the other thing that's actually kind of sad to me about the scene is, well, Neo was successful, and let's all be very happy, applaud this girl, because she is best girl. Neo is the best. And while she did come out with success, well, the thing is, Cinder doesn't even thank the girl. Poor Neo. You get nerfed, you get punched in the face by a stupid farm boy. You just, they treated you dirty this volume, Neo. They treated you so dirty. And, of course, Cinder doesn't even thank Neo at all. Just takes the lamp and walks away with it. smiling because at least there was one success. And I just can't help but feel for Neo. And it's like Neo wanted some form of appreciation from Cinder. I could probably say the only reason why that would be is because they worked together before, back in Volume 3 and Volume 2. So I would say that that's probably the reason, and that maybe she has found a friend ever since she lost Roman, because she didn't have anybody else. So maybe she was looking for friendship there with Cinder. And then, of course, I think what they're trying to set up here is that Neo is going to betray Cinder in the future. I think that's exactly what they're trying to set up here. Now, then we go to Ben Bronwyn. Let's talk about that scene for a minute. Clover's dead. It's all Ben's fault because he teamed up with Tyrion. Ben's an idiot. And, plain and simple, this was not misfortune. This was just him being stupid. I mean, seriously. You teamed up with an antagonist character to murder your friend. Good job, Ben. Good job, Ben Bronwyn. You are the biggest idiot. And then, of course, you have Robin Hill, who's here to consult him, like, oh, it's okay. Don't act like you care, you moron. I mean, seriously, Robin, you don't care. You're the one who instigated the fight in the first place. You're an idiot, and your character is the most useless, I think, in the entire series I've ever seen. So, then, of course, you see Team RWBY escape because Winter calls out that they are going to try to arrest them and that she was going to give them a head start. So they escape with Penny, and as all of this goes down, now that Penny is the Winter Maiden, here's the thing. Team RWBY, virtue signaling to victory, yet again, because they can't lose, they can't be wrong, and then anyone who has a different ideology than them, then either they need to conform to Team RWBY's ways, or they're on the wrong side. Oh, I'm so tired of that. I'm so tired of Team RWBY virtue signaling to victory. Not only that, but Ironwood, of course, they're trying to set up that he's a big bad guy. He's on the same side. I don't understand why they would say he's a bad guy, but they're trying to present Iron Man bad now. So, yeah, that's what they're going to probably go for next. Now, I will say this about the scenery. The scenery looked beautiful in the background of Atlas. I think it looked great. The one big thing I think they could have done here, because, Salem was coming, I think that they could have had the storm kind of slowly show up over time in the volume, and the clouds in the sky could have gotten worse to kind of signal that Salem's on her way. I think that would have been better. Then, of course, you have Salem ride in on her gigantic blue-haired orca whale, and, she's coming to take down Atlas. If there's one thing I don't understand, you're going to where the enemy with silver eyes is that's effective against you. So, why? Secondly, they're doing this because Salem hasn't done anything, so they're trying to make her useful. But I will say this. Her new design looks a lot better. I also have to say that I do like the chest window there. It looks great. It looks good. I think they could have changed her hair up a bit, but, whatever, right? But yeah, I think this design is better than her first one. It's definitely an improvement, in my opinion. Oh, and we forgot. Watts is, he's alive. Yeah, they just kind of threw that in there. He's sitting there on his casting couch waiting. But yeah, he's still there. But anyways, if I had to give this finale an overall rating, I would say it is a 3 out of 10. I was very underwhelmed with this one. I was disappointed with it. I feel like there were just so many issues. I feel like the Neo fight could have been a lot better. She could have very easily been more mobile in the fight. I mean, it's definitely better than her getting nerfed and then potentially being beaten by Team Orange, because, let's be real, she's better than they are. She never would have lost to them, and that would have been just completely frustrating to see that happen. So at least she won. She came out with a win, so there's props there. There's credit to that. But it just still feels like there's a Neo nerf here, and I am not at all happy about this. It is absolutely frustrating. Cinder, so much depth could be added to this character. They've had opportunities, Volume 6 definitely being a prime time, and then they just didn't do it. And her statement just sounds more like something that Adam would have said about Atlas or Ilya would have said. And they just don't add depth to these characters. That's one of the biggest problems. They just don't do it. And it's frustrating to see that. And it feels like they really just kind of nerfed Cinder as well in this and just had her lose because they don't like her. I think it's just a general bias against her character. At this point, she's Adam 2.0, which is something I don't want to see. Because, I don't want to see a character ever be treated the same way Adam was. That was awful what they did to Adam, and that's just an unforgivable act, what they did to that character. And to see Cinder be treated like this and shafted as well is awful. To see Winter be nerfed the way she was, there's no way you can convince me that her style is better than Weiss's at this point. Seeing how she was just so stuck solely on summoning, she could have jumped on glyphs during the fight. It would have been a lot cooler. Or summon some new Grim that we've never seen and make you question, oh, how did she beat that thing? No, that didn't happen. It's another problem I have. Penny becoming the Winter Maiden, she's an android. I don't see how that makes much sense, but then that would just tell me that androids should have always been the go-to for the Maiden powers. So I don't understand that. And, this whole entire volume just feels like it's been filler and nothing but filler. It's just frustrating. There were some ideas in this volume that, could have been expanded upon, and then they had to just shift it out for politics. And that's the most annoying part, is that never should have happened. Character nerfs, just terrible. I mean, shafted Weiss's arc entirely. I mean, there's just so many problems with this volume that just makes me so frustrated with it. I mean, and that's the other thing. When Salem appears, they don't even show Team RWBY's reaction. They only show you Pietro and Maria's reaction, two characters that people don't really care for anyways. So, there's so many things, but this volume, I think, is just, it's a mess. I honestly think this is worse than Volume 5. Not animation-wise, but in terms of writing, this is far worse than Volume 5. I just feel like it's horrible. But I'm going to go into a full discussion on the volume later, towards the end of the month or next month sometime, just talking about the issues with this volume, because there's too many issues with this volume to count. And I'll be honest, I'm glad this volume's over with. I just felt tortured through a lot of it because it's just so bad. Like, it just shows you the writers don't care. That they just don't care about what they're writing for anymore. They don't. They clearly don't. This volume tells you that they don't. But, there's going to be a lot of discussions in the future talking about a lot of the issues with this volume, because there are far too many to count. And I've got a lot to talk about with this volume over time. So while there will still be news-related content, there will also be discussions on this volume, because, good God, there's a lot for me to talk about here with this volume and the issues with it. But anyways, let me know what you think about this entire situation down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new here, and make sure you are still subscribed, because YouTube is unsubscribing people from their favorite channels, so make sure you're subscribed to all your favorite channels. And be sure to share the video on social media, spread the word, and get it out there. It's greatly appreciated, and it really helps out the channel a lot. Also, be sure to follow me on Discord. We have a wonderful community there, and it'll also be able to keep you up to date on when new videos will come out, as well as any other events in the future to come. So be sure to follow me there. The link is in the description down below. But anyways, I hope all of you have yourselves a wonderful and fantastic day today. And remember, if today was not a good day, tomorrow could always be better. Take care of yourselves and everyone around you. And have yourselves a good one out there, everybody.